was it like watching those bubbles just now? Did it bring a smile to your face? Did you maybe want to join in? And did you feel your body move a little bit according to the rhythm? For about 10 seconds, you were fully absorbed in the squeals of delight, the running around of the children, and the laughter, and maybe even that repeating tune of the bubble machine. For about 10 seconds, you forgot about everything else, and you were fully immersed in the colors, the fun, and the play. Hello, everyone. My name is Enoch. I'm the author of Stress in the City, Playing My Way Out of Depression. I'm also the managing director of Therapy, a workplace mental health consultancy in China. A big hello from Beijing today. I'm going to talk to you about the power of play and why it is a crucial element for adults to tap into their inner playfulness so that we find that inner sense of being, fulfillment, and happiness. Now, when you hear the word of play, what comes to your mind? In my work with executives, leaders, and adults around the world, I get a lot of similar responses of fun, games, laughter, children, silly, humor. But I also get some other responses like, it's a waste of time, not productive, only for kids, adults can't play, and especially not in the office because that's where we work. Now, this shows that we're actually not quite understanding what the essence of play is. Our misunderstandings and bias of, play can't be for adults is quite misconstrued. Because in fact, play plays a very important part in our lives. Now, what exactly, though, is play? If you think about concretely, from a perspective of psychology or animal behaviorists or just behaviorists, you can think about it as the actions and the behaviors we have. Think about little puppies romping around, biting each other, or kids tumbling around playing. Or if you look at it from a perspective of education and sociology, it is also the interaction between us and the environment, how we respond to external stimulus. Taking a more of a cultural and anthropological perspective, it is also about our culture, our conventions, and the games we play. And then, of course, there's also design. I'm sure a few big names of companies come to your mind when we think about office design and playfulness. Colors, different things, and swings and slides in the office. That's one other spectrum of play. Now, a lot of people have been researching play, including myself. But it seems like there's all these different facets and different measurements or traits of playfulness, and we never can quite agree on it. However, there is one foundational definition that everybody falls back on, which is by Johan Huizinga, an anthropologist who wrote the book Homo Ludens, People Who Play. Now, he defines 4 elements that's included in playfulness. The first thing is that it is fully absorbing. Second, that it's intrinsically motivated. It comes out from ourselves. Thirdly, there's an element of surprise or fun. And fourthly, an element of exaggeration and perhaps even illusion and imagination. Now, if you think about those kids playing with the bubbles, what really is the purpose of that? Maybe not much. They were just running around. And that, I think, is the essence of play and where a lot of the misunderstanding comes from. We think that there is no purpose to play. We're just running around doing something, but what is it? However, even though there may not be a specific purpose, it doesn't mean there isn't a positive outcome from it. I'll talk more about that in a bit. But first of all, please close your eyes and have a think back to your childhood when you were a little kid. How did you used to play? Was it games? Did you play with people? Did you play with the kids next door? Or were you content looking at ladybugs in the grass? And now open your eyes again and look around you. Maybe your desk, maybe your colleague's desk if you're lucky enough to be in the office today. What else are on their desks apart from the usual computers and phones and pens? Are there little trinkets, postcards, photos, maybe even little toys? And why are these things important? Because even though they're unassuming and innocent and they seem to just look there with no purpose, they may be the crucial element to your happiness and even in saving your life. It saved mine. About 10 years ago, I went through a very serious episode of burnout and eventually depression and anxiety. It was so bad that I thought life had no meaning to it, and I better end my own life. Now, I'd been seeing a psychologist, I've had doctors, and I had a good support network. However, for months on end, I didn't see people. I didn't eat. I lost about 10, 15 kilos. I had no interest in anything else that I used to be interested in. And I didn't go out. Sometimes I slept the whole day or even 3 days on end. And sometimes I just could not sleep. It was one of the most painful moments of my life. Now, somehow, about 4 or 5 weeks without leaving the apartment, my boyfriend was able to drag me out from the apartment to a nearby shopping mall. And you could imagine I was downcast. I wasn't looking at anybody. I could not have eye contact with anyone. And I was just staring at the ground like this. However, we walked by a toy shop. And I saw this little guy looking up at me. Now, you may think he's just a soft toy bear. But in that moment, when he was looking up at me, I smiled back at him. And my boyfriend decided to get me this bear because he hadn't seen me smile in ages. When we got home, he said, "Enoch, why didn't you give this bear a name?" And without thinking, I said, "Okay, let's call him Floppy." After a while, he said, "Well, why Floppy?" I didn't think much then, and I just answered off the top of my head, "Well, he doesn't do much. He flops around all day, watches TV, and, I don't know, eat mosquitoes." The days went by. I continued my therapy. I continued my soul searching. I continued my medication. I got a little bit better, and then I got worse again. I got a little bit better, and I got worse again. And for a long time, I felt really meaningless in my life. However, I did engage with that bear Floppy, and I started researching them. I found out they're a brand of bears from Canada, and I started to see that they had different colors and sizes, and I got really interested in them. Some of my friends knew, and they gave me gifts of that same design of bears. And with each bear that came, I gave them a name, and I started to give them a personality. For a while, I thought it was quite silly and childish, and I wouldn't tell anyone apart from my close friends. But after a while, I also said, well, it's quite fun for me. I enjoyed it. I started making up little stories for them. I would see the world and Beijing and the city and my life through their eyes. And in came a bear called Fuzzy, who was a corporate bear, who was very calculating and stresses everybody out, running around doing things. And then there is Chili Bear, whose goal in life is just to chill out and relax. And I have another one called Snobby Bear, who is a little bit self-righteous, a little bit superior, thinks he knows the best. Now, as you can see, I started to engage in it, and I got distracted from my low mood. I started to be able to find some joy in my otherwise mundane life and almost directionless life. And now I go back to the questions I asked you before I told you my story. When you were thinking back to how you played as a kid, how did it feel? What was fun for you? And when you looked around your desk and the objects and the toys that you saw, what is around you? For me, as you can see, I have a snow globe with the moon. I find the moon very calming, and I look at it sometimes when my mind's not clear. And I collect these toys. A poo. And most people find that quite strange. Like, why would you collect a poo? I find poo actually very unique and otherwise very neglected. We think it's something stinky and we don't like it. However, without it, the human biological cycle cannot work. And I think this is where the intricacies and the beauty of these toys and play lie. We interact actually with a lot of these things around our life. A lot of times we may even be playing, but we don't know it. I've done a lot of research and asked many, many executives, different nationalities, ages, adults, whether they're working in the office or not, to think about what they played with and how they played, and especially with objects. Now we find that actually a lot of them look at objects of, oh, this is the thing that helps me think. Or when I'm unable to think of a solution to a problem, I look at these toys and suddenly I have an inspiration. This is where all the creativity comes from. And for some people say, well, when I'm at the office and I'm a little bit bored, I start playing with these little toys, twirling them around my fingers, and it actually helps me relax a bit. Now, when you're engaging in these acts of play, what's happening in your brain with the chemicals is that it catalyzes certain neurotrophins. These neurotrophins are essential for our survival and learning, cognitive development, and emotional awareness. And more importantly, it reduces that sense of anxiety that we may feel, especially given the rapid changes in the world these days. And this leads me to the important point. Unless we're able to free ourselves from these senses of anxiety or despair, it is very hard to look into, well, how can I be happy? When we're playing, when you're fully absorbed in things, it's likened to a feeling of flow where you're just fully immersed and your focus and your concentration is just so refined. And this is where you find the meaning in what you do. And with the meaning is where you feel that sense of happiness and fulfillment. And then, however, I think a lot of us as adults have forgotten to play. We think we need to work and be serious all the time. However, actually, when we're playful, the research has shown that we become more productive, we're more creative, and more importantly, we're able to cope with stressful situations in life much better. And for those overachieving perfectionists and tiger mothers like me, it actually also helps the children achieve a higher score because their brains are working and refreshed all the time. Also, with play, you're able to discover a lot more about yourself. When I created these names and personalities for these bears, it wasn't really just out the top of my head. Somewhere I knew that they were the different inner selves of me. They were the different parts of me. And maybe some bits I didn't like so well. After all, who would like to be called somebody with a sense of superiority and righteousness? And yet, I must admit, I have a bit of that. I like to know or to think that I'm always right. And I think it is that self-acceptance of embracing, yes, this is me, this is all of me, that also gives us that sense of happiness and meaning inside us. So, how can we play every day? Well, it's actually not as hard as you think. First of all, you can always look at the toys that you have, see how you interact with them, think about why you play with them and why not. Or you can try walking backwards sometimes on the street, skip. Some people like to play on their own, read a book, draw, doodle, color. And some people like to engage and play with others. So why not go around on one of your video conferences and ask people to share what their favorite toys are? Get them to tell you the stories behind these toys. Or maybe even you can use the toys as puppets and they can talk to each other. And trust me, I have done that with a lot of adults and they loved it. Because play is also about building connections. And as you build connections, that's where you find that inner joy, the meaning to a fulfilling life. A one that way you can feel really that inner sense of happiness. Play is essential for our lives and for thriving. It is a vitamin to our happiness. And if you really don't know where to start, well, try blowing bubbles. Thank you.